Hi guys, I'm Andrew McCoskey and welcome to my channel. This is another video in this video series. We're talking all about intelligent design and whether or not it's a viable theory we should give more attention to or not. I encourage you guys, if you've not checked out my other videos, you do that because particularly this video we're crunching a lot of numbers and it's important to kind of have a good sense of why I'm crunching these numbers and kind of leading up to this video. My last video, you guys might have watched, I hope you did, we talked about the popular theories of how the first cell came into existence, how we went from the inorganic to the first living cell, and how, in my opinion, the mainstream theories being offered up simply aren't logical and cannot account for how incredibly complex the cell and DNA really is. So today I'm gonna show you guys just the sheer odds of chance alone of a cell coming into existence without any prior direction, just purely by chance. And hopefully we'll begin to understand that it's really not a logical explanation to believe that chance could account solely for everything we see in the cell. We know that DNA is a wonder of our generation, that we're just beginning to understand how incredibly complex it is, and the cell is very much the same way. Bill Gates has been quoted saying that DNA is like a software program, just much more complex than anyone we've ever devised. And it's also important to understand that the cell, in order to build proteins which make up the cell, amino acids that form proteins have to be perfectly chained together in order to form a protein, and those proteins have to be perfect in order to make what becomes the cell. And so it's important just to see how many possible combinations there really are. Because if there are only, say, 4 entirely different types of amino acids, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to see these cells forming by themselves through chance alone. But we're going to see how incredibly big the combinations get. Let me write this on the board real quick. We know through just biology, I learned this in just biology 1 in I think my freshman year of high school, that there is 20 protein-forming amino acids. So there's 20. Now if you consider there is, say, a amino acid chain that is 150 amino acids long, which is smaller than the average is like 300 to 400, that number of combinations becomes 20 to the 150th power, right there. If you convert that to base 10, you end up with 10 to the 195th power possible combinations for the amino acids forming if you have a chain of amino acids that is 150 links long, I guess. Now, this fairly well-known, fairly well-respected biologist, Doug Axe, he worked at Cambridge University for 14 years. He asked this really big, important question, which basically was, what is the ratio of functioning proteins, amino acids that form proteins, to basically the useless strains of amino acids? Because if amino acids aren't perfectly aligned, it goes from being a potential protein to just being a useless strain. And the number he came up with was quite convincing and quite staggering. What he found when he worked on a amino acid chain that was roughly 150 links long, which, bear in mind, that is smaller than the average of 300 to 400, that the probability, or I guess the ratio of functioning proteins to useless strains of amino acids was 1 to 10 to the 74th power. So once again, that's the ratio of, if this is one functioning chain of amino acids that makes up a protein, and this is useless strains of amino acids. So already we have a very, very small number. We realize how incredibly small that really is. But it gets even smaller. The chances become even lower. If you consider that there's 2 types of bonds. There's peptide and non-peptide bonds, and only peptide bonds can form proteins. Peptide bonds occur roughly at a 1 in 2 chance. So once again, you have a 1 in 2 chance at every single site, every single link, which is 149 times, call it 150. If you convert that to base 10, you have another realm of possibility, which is 10 to the 45th. So with that, you have 10 to the 74th times 10 to the 45th, right there. But there is another layer on top of that. There's a thing called left hand and right hand optical isomers. Basically, they come in 2 different flavors called left hand and right hand optical isomers, and they, kind of like peptide bonds, occur at a 1 in 2 ratio, I guess. And the big thing with that is only left-hand optical isomers can form proteins. If you have even one right-hand optical isomer, the protein itself falls apart. It can't form because the amino acid chain is incorrect. It cannot form a protein. You have to start over. So once again, you have that 1 in 2 chance at every single link, which just like the peptide bonds is 10 to the 45th. So once again, to add this together, you have 10 to the 74th times 10 to the 45th times 10 to the 45th. And if you remember in math, you add it straight across, and you end up with 10 to the 164th power. So you have 1 in 10 to the 164th power possibilities of having a protein compared to, useless chains of amino acids. And you, of course, need proteins to make up your cell. So hopefully you understand how incredibly small that number really is. Just to kind of put that in perspective, there's only 10 to the 80th power elementary particles in the universe. There's only 10 to the 16th power seconds since the Big Bang. So what Neo-Darwinism is saying is that this number that's basically 0, 1 chance and 10 to the 164th chances, those are the odds of one protein forming purely through chance alone. And if you consider that what we've been talking about this entire time is one protein, and there's definitely more than one protein in a cell. Scientists hypothesize that you would need roughly 250 to 400 proteins in order to form the first minimally complex single-cell organism. So imagine this big number here. You have to do that at least 250 more times just to have a cell that could be complex enough to survive itself in this harsh world that Neo-Darwinism says our world started in. And so just think about how amazing that is. How we're being taught that life arose by chance through a purely undirected process, and we're being told that that's a better explanation than the possibility of there being an intelligent power behind it to set this place into motion. Science is basically saying that these odds, 250 times, is a better explanation than the possibility of there being something out there that could set this into motion. To me, that's shocking. And to think that something this incredibly complex could come through, soup being hit with lightning, or through community clay over time, to think that these odds could be fulfilled in that, I think is entirely illogical. It's not a logical thing. It's not a good explanation for how life really could begin. And this cell here we're talking about, this common ancestor first cell idea, it's not even close to being as complex as the cells we see now in our body. This is, like I said, a minimally complex cell. Hopefully you guys have seen through this video that chance through an undirected process simply isn't a good hypothesis. I mean, honestly, I don't know how scientists are saying, through an undirected process, through chance alone, that's a good hypothesis. Because as you see with this number, the cell is incredibly complex, and just in order for amino acids to form one protein, you have odds that are so incredibly small we can't even imagine how small that is. That's really all I wanted to say today, guys. Hopefully you guys understand what I was trying to teach you guys, just that this idea of a totally undirected process through chance alone simply does not account for what we see in the cell or would have to see in the first minimally complex cell. Once again, if you have any questions on this video or anything I'm doing, shoot me a question down below. I'll do my best to answer it. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned.